Hori, who was the first king of Egypt?
That is an older story still, older than many temples, older than the pyramids, older than the oldest royal tombs beside the Nile. You have heard how Egypt struggled to preserve balance after the age of Osiris. But tonight, I will tell you about the ruler remembered for first binding the two lands beneath one crown, the king later traditions called Menes.
In those distant days, Egypt was not yet one kingdom. The river flowed north as it always had, but the lands beside it remained divided. Far to the south, the rulers of Upper Egypt governed narrow, fertile valleys between cliffs and desert. Far to the north, the delta spread wide into marshes and waterways before meeting the sea. Different crowns, different rulers, different loyalties. And though the Nile connected them, rivalry moved upon the river as surely as trade boats and fishermen. Archaeological records and early royal traditions remembered this as a time before unity, before one throne ruled the Black Land from end to end.
Near Abydos, where ancient kings would later rest beneath the desert sands, there grew a ruler from the south. Some traditions called him Menes. Others remembered the name Narmer. Even the earliest records did not always agree. But again and again, the memory returned. A king rose from Upper Egypt with the vision to unite the river kingdoms. He listened carefully before acting. He watched the floods. He studied trade routes and frontier dangers. And slowly, powerful families and warriors began to gather beneath his falcon banner.
The banners of the south moved northward along the Nile. War boats cut through the river mist before sunrise. Messengers crossed dusty roads between settlements. Fortified towns prepared for conflict. But understand this carefully, little ones. The unification of Egypt was not merely about war. The river kingdoms depended upon one another. Floods needed coordination. Trade demanded protection. Temples required stability. Without balance, hunger and disorder could spread from village to village like fire through dry roots. And so the sovereign king pushed forward. Ancient ceremonial carvings later showed the ruler wearing the tall white crown of Upper Egypt. Other carvings showed him wearing the red crown of the north. To later generations, these images became sacred symbols. Two lands joined together, one river, one throne. The old divisions did not vanish overnight, such things never do. But slowly, the authority of one kingship spread across the Nile Valley, and Egypt began to see itself as something greater than scattered kingdoms beside a river. With unity came change. Royal officials began recording harvests and tribute. Temple rituals became more organized. Trade routes grew safer.
stoneworkers carved royal symbols into ivory, clay, and ceremonial palettes. A civilization was beginning to awaken, not all at once, not in a single season, but slowly, like the Nile rising beneath the moon. This became the foundation of dynastic Egypt, the beginning of the long chain of pharaohs that would rule for thousands of years beneath the desert stars.
The traditions say the first great kings established a royal center near the meeting place of Upper and Lower Egypt, Memphis, a city positioned between north and south like a knot tying the kingdom together. Its storehouses filled with grain from across the Nile. Its temples welcomed priests and scribes. Its workshops rang with the sounds of craftsmen shaping stone and copper. From there, royal authority traveled outward across the riverlands, and the idea of one Egypt grew stronger with every passing generation.
Listen carefully now. The earliest Egyptian kings were not remembered merely as rulers. They were guardians of balance. The Nile could nourish the people or destroy them. Neighboring lands could trade peacefully or invade. The harvest could flourish or fail. To wear the crown meant carrying responsibility for all of it. That sacred balance would later be called Ma'at, truth, order, harmony. And every future pharaoh inherited the burden first carried by the rulers who united the two lands.
Centuries passed over Egypt. Great pyramids rose beside the desert. Dynasties faded into history. New kings carved their names into temple walls. Yet the memory of the first unifier endured. The priests and scribes of later ages looked backward through time and remembered Menes as the ruler who stood at the beginning, the king who transformed divided river kingdoms into one civilization. That is why his name survived when so many others disappeared beneath the sands.
Remember this, little ones. Civilizations are not built in a single day, nor are they held together by strength alone. Egypt endured because generation after generation believed balance mattered more than chaos. That belief began long before the pyramids, long before the mighty temples, long before the greatest dynasties of the Nile. And somewhere beyond the dark river waters, the first kings still sleep beneath the silent desert, waiting to be remembered.
Your double crown is dust upon the wind, and Memphis sleeps where new shores now begin. The alabaster walls have turned to sand, but your great heart still beats across the land. Your love flows on forever.